So going down this weekend, we got Noche UFC, Diego Lopes versus Jean Silva. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you my full card breakdown along with a pick for every single fight on the card. And let's be real, man, this card is carried by the main event in Lopes versus Silva. We got Canelo versus Bud Crawford going on. That's where Dana White's attention is. And this card, it is some absolute cheeks, right? It just is. We got to call it what it is, man. This card is some cheeks, right? At least on paper, right? And normally when we get these kind of things right at the apex, we complain about the cards. There's not a lot of name value. And then they deliver, right? Maybe we get some crazy scraps out here. But on paper, this card is not very good. It's not. That's reality. I'm not super excited for it, to be honest. But I'm stoked about the main event between Lopes and Silva. It's a big fight for the featherweight division, and it is a car crash waiting to happen. Cannot wait for that fight. Let's hop straight into it with the very first fight of the night between Rodrigo Sezinando and Daniil Donchenko. I'm going to go Daniil Donchenko by decision. Listen, I was very impressed with what I saw from Daniil on Tough. I thought his last performance against Matt Dixon was absolutely spectacular. And this fight was supposed to happen back at UFC 319. I believe it was Rodrigo that picked up an injury, so they had to move it back to this card. And I just like what we've seen from Daniil, man. I thought that performance against Matt Dixon was absolutely flawless. And I thought that if Matt got matched up maybe with Rodrigo, that we could have seen Matt in the finals here against a guy like Daniil Donchenko. And listen, Daniil absolutely busted Matt up. And that's what we saw from Donchenko throughout the season. Fast on the feet, excellent Muay Thai skills. Reminds me of a more dynamic but fast version of kind of like a Rafael Fiziev. I shouldn't necessarily say more dynamic, but a very similar style. Fast kicks, good movement, and he does have pretty solid grappling from what we've seen, right? And I expect him to stuff the takedowns, and even if he does get taken down, work back to his feet. He's way better than Rodrigo on the feet. It just comes down to the fact that Rodrigo does have decent stand-up, right? He starts to wing kind of these big shots when he gets a little uncomfortable, becomes very predictable on the feet. He is easy for a guy like Daniil Donchenko to read. To me, this just comes down to whether Daniil can stop the takedowns or not, because I think that Sezinando is going to come after him, look to pressure him, get in on his hips, push him up against the fence, take him down, and look to wear on him and control him. But I think that Daniil has good hips. I think he can stop the takedowns, keep the fight on the feet. I think he's way faster and just a way better overall fighter, honestly, in my opinion. Give me Daniil Donchenko to get this one done by decision. Maybe he finds a finish, but I'll say he outscores them and lands quite a bit of damage in this one. Next, we got Alice Pereira versus Montserrat Rendon. I am going to go Alice Pereira by decision. And no, she is not related to Poatan Pereira, right? That is Eileen Pereira over in Karate Combat, right? So, but what we see from Alice Pereira, what I like about her, she's got finishing ability, right? She's coming off of a win over Santos, got the decision nod, but she's able to go out there. She's got good power, good movement on the feet, good variety, good power in her hands, good kicks. I like what we've seen from her, right? And anytime we see someone who's, she's not even 20 years of age coming into the UFC here, big spotlight to a degree, even though it's not a great card, it's still a big spotlight here, right? Big opportunity, making your debut in the UFC against someone in Montserrat Rendon who isn't exactly a world beater. She's 1-1 in the UFC, but we've seen she can pressure you. She's got grit, she's got heart, she'll move forward, she can mix things up pretty well. She's physically strong. We saw that against Vidal, went out there, got the split decision, coming off of a loss to Daria Zelenziakova. So not a bad loss there, right? And we've seen that if she can pressure you, work in the takedowns, blend the striking with the grappling, I think that she actually might be able to pull this off. But I'm going to trust the youth, the footwork, and the speed on the feet that I have seen from Pereira. And she's got some sting, right? So it's not like you can just recklessly close her down and just, try to just mosey forward without paying any type of cost. So I like that, on the side of Pereira. I think she sticks and moves, lands some significant shots. Maybe she finds a finish, but I'm going to say she outscores her, lands some good shots, and wins this one by decision. But don't be surprised if Rendon pulls this one off, because if she's able to get the fight to the floor, I think she has a little bit of an advantage there, possibly. We'll see, because we've seen Pereira does have some solid submission skills. A lot of unknowns here with a 19-year-old making her debut in the UFC. Next, we got Alessandro Costa versus Alden Coria. I'm going to go Alessandro Costa by, I'll say, decision here. Listen, out of his last 5 fights, right, he got a nice win before the UFC, comes in and gets just, busted up and finished on the ground by Amir Albazi. And we've seen that while Amir Albazi's not, I don't know if he's going to be a world champion in this weight class, he's got good wrestling, decent on the feet, decent ground and pound. He is a solid grappler, right? So if you're going to design a fighter that can give Costa some issues, it's going to be someone that can push the pace when it comes to the grappling. Then he bounces back with a nice finish over Jimmy Flick. Then they throw him back in there against a really good guy again in Steve Erceg, loses a decision, and then he goes out there and is coming off of a very impressive win, but again, about a year ago, so he's been out for a while, against Kevin Borjas, where he put an absolute beating on Kevin Borjas' lead leg, man. I mean, that was very, very impressive. He's got some hellacious low kicks, which I think he's going to be looking to use in this fight. But something to note, he's been out for a year, right? I know it's not a big deal. He's 29 years of age, but Alden Coria making his debut in the UFC here, right? Coming over from Fury. That's a solid, regional promotion, right? His last loss, year and 7 months ago, but he's been pretty active, right? And I like that from him, right? Just fought 3 months ago, got a KO, but I think that this is a little bit too much too soon. Now, I will say this, on the feet, I think that he's got some good power in his hands to where he could outbox Alessandro Costa. But with him being an orthodox style of opponent, he's a little bit heavy on that lead leg. I could just see Costa working that lead leg, man. It doesn't take many from Costa. He'll throw some of those calf kicks, and he'll just mix them up, stick and move, fight behind the high guard, don't take any risks on the feet, and just blast leg kicks from range. So if Alden has an answer for that, I do think he can go in there and pull off this upset here. However, given what we've seen from Costa so far, he's been in the UFC, and his 2 losses are against 2 really, really good guys in this division, and Amir Albazi and Steve Erceg. So I'm going to side with the guy that we know what we're going to get here, and Alessandro Costa, who's got devastating leg kicks. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's aggressive. He's fun to watch. But like I said, I think Alden can go in there, and if he can stop the leg kicks, I could see him finding some success when it comes to the boxing here. So I think this plays out on the feet. I think the leg kicks are going to be an issue for Alden in this fight. Give me Costa to get this one done by decision. Next, we have Zachary Resse versus Cedric Dumas. Give me Zachary Resse by knockout in the very first round. Listen, I understand that Cedric Dumas, out of his last 5 fights, right, the only losses are coming to Nursultan Ruziboev. They're coming against Michal Oleksiejczuk, and I faded him in both of those fights, right? I've just not been high on Cedric Dumas. I think I picked him to beat Dennis Tululin, right? So I understand what we see with Cedric Dumas, right? He's 6'2", 79-inch reach, right? He's got that Kevin Holland-like build, right? I kind of compare him to Kevin Holland on the feet because his striking is kind of basic, right? He relies on the right hand. You just never know what you're going to get. He's kind of bouncing around. Sometimes he's on, sometimes he's not, which is, what reminds me of Holland is the frame, but then I don't know what you're going to do. Are you going to come out there? Is he going to, throw that nasty right hand down the middle, knock somebody out? Right when he was out there outscoring Cody Brundage, was out there, got the win over a Zaitar, and I'm like, look, this guy's pretty good. Right, and then we saw against Tululin, he was sticking and moving, doing a great job. We've even seen some solid things on the ground from Dumas, right? But I just don't know how focused this guy is when it comes to the MMA game, right? And he's getting himself in trouble outside the octagon, right? And Zachary Resse is a savage, man. He's an absolute savage, right? His losses are coming to, he got, finished by Cody Brundage, got picked up and slammed, got Batista bombed, and it's like, okay, not the greatest look, but ever since, he finished Julian Marquez, beat Jose Medina, was beaten up on him, right? Medina, who's on this card, is just a moving heavy bag guy, super tough, really, really hard to put away, unless you're Adama Gautier. Then he goes out there and gets starched by Azamat Bakoyev, but how good is Bakoyev? One of the more dangerous guys on the rise in the weight class. And then he goes out there and gets a decision win over Dusko Todorovic. But what we see from Zachary Resse, he's very aggressive. He's a big guy in this weight class, very physically strong, has solid grappling, very, very good power, doesn't have good defense, which is where I could see Dumas catching him on the way in, peppering him up with some shots from the outside. But I just can't trust Cedric Dumas, man. I'm not high on this guy. I just don't know what guy we're going to see. When he shows up, he's very capable of winning this fight. He absolutely is. But if it comes down to a grit fest and it comes down to, this grinded out type of fight, Zachary Resse is going to win that here. And if it's going to get finished early, I just trust the offensive juggernaut here in Zachary Resse. I think his pressure, I think his mindset, I think where he's at in his career right now, this is a guy that is locked in, man. Where Cedric Dumas, I just don't know. I got questions. So I'm going to go with the guy in Zachary Resse who I think is very, very powerful. He's explosive. He's confident. And if this fight does drag out and he doesn't get an early finish, I believe that he will be able to take down Dumas, outscore him, control him, wear on him, and will grit one out and win a decision. I see many ways for Zachary Resse to get this one done. I just can't trust Cedric Dumas to show up in there when he's needed. So give me Zachary Resse to get this one done. Next, we got Jesus Aguilar versus Luis Gurule. Give me Luis to get this one done, and I'll say by decision here. Listen, I know Luis I picked him in this fight, and that turned out to be really bad, right? I picked him to get it done over Ode Osborne because we saw him look pretty good on the Contender Series, right? And prior to that, he's just a guy that has really, really good pace, really good cardio. He's very physically strong, decent variety on the feet, mixes things up, solid power, and he just pushes a constant, relentless pace in your face, right? But then he ran into a problem here, which in hindsight, this is kind of a disastrous matchup. A guy with good footwork, decent enough takedown defense, good range management, and lightning fast counter striking on the feet in Ode Osborne. That's what we saw in this fight. It was just one of those things. You made your debut, you got stunned on. I expect a much better performance this time around from Luis because he has a very favorable stylistic matchup here, in my opinion, in Jesus Aguilar, right? Jesus got submitted by Tatsuro Taira, KO'd Shannon Ross with an overhand right. But like I said, I could KO Shannon Ross with a jab, right? Shannon Ross, man's got no chin, right? I mean, he's basically on every flyweight that's been on the come up in the past couple of years. Shannon Ross is probably on their highlight reel getting knocked out, right? Then we got, he's got a win here. Then he goes out there, submits Stuart Nickel with a guillotine, and that was a big upset, right? Because a lot of people were high on Stuart Nickel making his debut, and Jesus Aguilar has a nasty guillotine, maybe the nastiest one in the flyweight division. Then he goes out there and loses to Rafael Estevam, and we're seeing just how good of a grappler, Estevam is. So he's been in there with, better competition, obviously, so far. But outside of a guillotine submission, right, Luis is going to have to be careful there that, Jesus doesn't jump guard, try to, go for a gilly. But that may actually work to the advantage of Luis in this fight because if Jesus does that, he's going to end up on bottom. And I think that ending up on bottom under Luis, that is not particularly a great idea. I think on the feet, Aguilar does have some power, but he's pretty predictable and telegraphs that big right overhand. So I think that Luis is going to be prepared for that. Going to move forward, put a pace on him. Aguilar, he is durable. He's tough. He's shown that he's a well-rounded guy, but I feel like he is a very good matchup for Luis to bounce back here. Give me Luis to go out there and win a gritty type of decision over Jesus Aguilar. Next, we got Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos. Give me Tatiana Suarez by submission. I think she's going to find a submission probably in the second round here. Listen, I picked Zhang Weili to beat Tatiana Suarez, and I know a lot of people are very high on Tatiana, and I am as well, right? I just figured the long layoff, right, that she was out for a couple years, basically, right? She's faced a lot of adversity outside of fighting, and I was just like, look, I understand the UFC, they're looking for contenders, they're throwing her in there with Zhang Weili, and she's very, very good on the ground. Excellent grappling skills, but we just saw levels, man. And Zhang Weili, she's one of the greatest women's fighters to ever do it. She's one of my favorites of all time, man. I mean, she's an absolute savage. Losing to her, no harm, no foul. No harm, no foul. Took some time away, comes back into a title shot, got beaten up. But how do you bounce back? Right, and I think that we're going to see a strong performance from Tatiana Suarez because prior to that, 6 years ago, I can't believe the gaps that we've seen throughout. It's just crazy, man, right? But goes out there back in the day, this was a good win. Finishing Carlos Esparza, beating Nina Nunes, right? Getting a submission over De La Rosa. Submitting Jessica Andrade 2 years ago, back when Andrade was kind of in the mix, right? So these are some pretty good wins for Tatiana Suarez. So just because she got busted up by Zhang Weili doesn't mean that she's out of this thing. She's 34 years of age. She's got really, really good wrestling. She's 5'5", 66-inch reach, right? Her striking, not particularly great, but she's strong. She's got a pretty solid gas tank. Her grappling is very good, chains things together. Excellent jiu-jitsu when the fight hits the floor. I like that in this fight because Amanda Lemos, she's an absolute savage. I picked her to win this fight and pull this one off. I think she was a dog coming into this against Yasmin Lucindo. But what I like about Amanda Lemos is she's super game, good power on the feet, solid striking, will throw caution to the wind to put herself in the opportunity to get a finish, right? So she's a very fun fighter to watch. But, she finished Marina Rodriguez. loses to Zhang Weili by decision. Goes out there, beats Mackenzie Dern, was able to get that one done. Gets submitted by Virna Jandiroba. When you're looking at someone like Virna, I think that maybe Virna has better jiu-jitsu than Tatiana Suarez, but Tatiana, I would say, is definitely a better wrestler. So I think she's going to be able to take Lemos down, going to be able to control her, going to be able to win minutes, probably softens her up with some ground and pound, maybe even finishes her with some ground and pound. But I see her softening her up, sliding, the arm underneath, just locking in a rear naked choke or something. Give me Tatiana Suarez to get this thing done. But listen, if Lemos can stop these takedowns and keep this fight on the feet and start to make Tatiana fatigue and doubt herself, Amanda Lemos might be able to pull this one off, because on the feet, I think she's significantly better. I think she's much better on the feet. She's got good power, and it feels like when people count out Amanda Lemos, she's able to get it done. But I do like the stylistic matchup here for Tatiana Suarez. She's a very, very high-level grappler. Just because she lost to Zhang Weili, that was the only loss in her career. I think she bounces back strong here, gets the win, and not only that, I think she finds herself fighting the winner probably of Mackenzie Dern versus Virna Jandiroba for a title next. Give me Tatiana Suarez by domination. Next, we got Claudio Puelles versus Joaquim Silva. I don't know, man. I don't know with this fight, because Claudio Puelles, I just haven't been a fan, right? I mean, he's 29 years of age, right? He's been kind of inactive, and, he beat Jordan Levitt, which has aged well, right? Beat Chris, who I don't even know who the hell that is, submitted him, right? Was able to go out there, get the knee bar of a Clay Guida, right? But a little bit later in the career of Guida, but it's 3 years ago, right? Okay. Gets finished by Dan Hooker, got absolutely brutalized. But again, he had, Hooker, in some danger at times, right? Then goes out there and loses a split decision to Faraz Ziam. I feel like that's aged well, right? And stylistically, Puelles, he's got the good jiu-jitsu, be scooting around on the ground, right? So I just got question marks here, because with the striking, it never really has looked good, right? And he's 5'10", 72-inch reach. He's got this, this perfect frame, it seems, for the lightweight division. But the striking on the feet, it just, I don't know, man. It's not good. Maybe it's gotten better because he's been away for a while. He's got, a little bit of a layoff here, right? A little over, almost 2 years, year and a half, right? And I know he's very good on the ground. And Joaquim Silva, I think, has the edge on the feet, right? I mean, out of his last 5 fights, this is another guy that's not very active, right? Got finished by Ricky Glenn, which, I mean, how crazy is that to get finished by Ricky Glenn there, right? Then he gets a KO over Jesse Ronson. I don't even know who that is. Casual. I don't know who that is. Gets ground and pounded out by Arman Sarukian. Okay, but Arman's a dog. He's a beast. Okay, beats Clay Guida by decision. Coming off of a loss a little over a year ago against Jakar Close. He, had some moments in that Jakar fight. But at the end of the day, Claudio Puelles, I mean, you can't play with him on the ground. And I know that Silva's got good jiu-jitsu. I do. And I get the nickname Neto BJJ, right? He's got some slick stuff on the ground. But I don't think it's slicker than Claudio Puelles. And I think on the feet, I mean, Silva's got power. And maybe, yeah, he is the better striker. But is he way better than Puelles on the feet? He's going to be able to go out there and do what a Dan Hooker did to him. I don't think so. And I think if you're getting caught on the ground in these grappling exchanges and Claudio is just able to pull you into that weird fight, I feel like Puelles is able to get this one done, man. I mean, I don't like this fight. This is a weird-ass fight to me. It just is. I'll say that Puelles wins a decision here. Maybe he finds a submission. Maybe he's got this newfound striking. Maybe he went 2-3 years, not Dagestan. I don't know where the hell he went, but learned how to strike. 2-3 years somewhere to strike, because he's got a decent, jiu-jitsu game. Very good, actually. Doesn't have the best takedown entries. Doesn't have the best, ability to get you to the floor. But I feel like he's going to find ways to get into these entanglements with Silva that's going to win in minutes. Maybe he does find a submission here. I'm going to go Claudio Puelles by decision here. Maybe find a submission, but I very much could see Silva just beating him up if he's able to stop the takedowns and get out of these weird positions. So I don't know, man. This is a weird fight to me, but I'll side with the younger guy and Puelles, who has a little bit more upside. I don't know. This is a hard fight for me to call, to be honest. Next, we got Jose Medina versus Dusko Todorovic. I'm going to go Dusko by decision. Listen, Here's the reality. I think both of these fighters just might be fighting for their job in the UFC in this fight here. And it's kind of it feels like the UFC is just giving these guys one last chance, right? I mean, you got Dusko's 31, right? I believe he holds a victory over Michel Pereira, right? Which is kind of his, I guess, claim to fame, right? People were building this guy up. They're like, this is the next big thing in the middleweight. I'm tripping. Nobody said that. Nobody was saying that about Dusko Todorovic. But listen, he's pretty technical. 6'1", 74-inch reach. He can grapple. He's the more technical fighter here. But if you're talking about grit, if you're talking about toughness, you're talking about dog, that's Jose Medina, but that's about it. That's about all he brings. He's not a professional level MMA fighter when it comes to the skill. That's the reality. But what he has in terms of the grit, the heart, those kinds of things you can't teach. Right? But the bottom line is that only gets you so far. It just does, right? You get into the UFC and okay, you lose a decision to Magomed Gadzhiasulov, and, Magomed's no longer in the UFC, right? And then you go out there and you lose a decision to Zachary Resse. He was getting dominated, right? And Resse was beating him up so bad he started to get tired, and then Medina kind of fought his way back in, and the UFC is like, hey, look what we got here, right? We got maybe a little something with Medina. Then he goes out there and gets absolutely destroyed by the absolute monster in this weight class, probably the most hyped up guy at middleweight right now in Adaba Gautier. Okay, so you lose to him, but we can see that chin can get cracked. But again, Adaba's a different kind of, animal here in terms of the power, the ferociousness. That dude, he might be a future champion. But what we've seen from Dusko, I mean, his last win was 2 years ago against Jordan Wright. Right? I mean, he's getting finished by Leroy Duncan. There was the knee injury, right? Goes out there, gets finished by Mansour Abdul Malik. Right, loses to Zachary Resse. We've seen that Dusko can get rung around, right? Doesn't have the greatest durability here, to where I see him maybe putting a beating on Medina. Then he starts to slow down, and Medina works his way back into the fight, hangs around, and is able to kind of just walk him down, go zombie mode, and find a way to get this thing done. That's very possible. But I'm going to go with the better fighter here. And I think Dusko can bite down. I think that, like I said, both of these guys are really kind of fighting to stick around probably to stay in the UFC here. And I think that the more technical fighter that does have the ability to take the fight to the floor and win minutes there if things get hairy, I'm going to trust Dusko to get this one done. I think his fight IQ comes into the play. He's a better overall fighter. He's pretty much, he's pretty good everywhere. And Jose Medina, like I said, he's got grit, he's got heart, he's got all those different things. But in terms of his skill, it's just not UFC caliber. So as long as, Dusko doesn't get tired, doesn't get clipped with a shot, doesn't slow down, he should absolutely win this fight handily. Give me Dusko to get this one done. Medina's just basically a moving heavy bag, to be real. Next, we got Santiago Luna versus Quang Le. I'm going to go Santiago Luna by submission. Listen, I know, I'll say in the second round. Listen, I played with the idea of picking Quang Le to win this fight, and I do believe that, listen, Santiago Luna, I have some questions, right? Because this is a guy that I don't know if he's spent, I was trying to look on Tapology to see the weight classes for all of these fights, but his past two fights, I believe, for sure have been in the featherweight division. And what we've seen is he is a very, very, very strong and explosive athlete. He has outstanding wrestling in terms of, from what we've seen so far. Now, in the UFC, is it going to be outstanding? That's going to be the question. But what I've seen from, going back and watching his film, he's an explosive wrestler, very, very solid submission game, good power on the feet, does get a little bit wild at times. But, I mean, this win right here over Magomed Beydoev, I went back and watched this fight. I mean, this guy's good, man. Good submission skills, right? I saw a clip of it, I should say. Goes out there. I mean, he's got power on the feet, man. He's got some serious power, good submission skills. He's very, very explosive. He's young, 21 years of age, right? So I like what I've seen from him. And Quang Le, I mean, I know he's coming off of a win here over Gaston Bolaños, right? Who pulled off a nice submission over Bolaños. This was a good win for Quang Le, right? I picked Gaston to win this fight. So Le proved me wrong. Right, and he suffered 2 L's when he came into the UFC. One to Gutierrez and one to Long Zhao, right? And got finished by Zhao, right? And if you go back and you watch even, I think it's his amateur fights, with Quang Le, or look at his record, at least one of the amateur fights. It was his very first one, I believe, amateur fights. It's whatever his first fight was on Tapology. That is on YouTube. And he gets knocked out very quickly in that fight. No head movement. I know he's got power in his hands where he could go out there, stuff the takedowns. He could possibly finish Luna, right? The weight cut does concern me a little bit with Santiago, and this is a short notice step up here because this was supposed to be David Martinez, who's now, fighting Rob Font in the co-main. Right, so a different style matchup for Quang. This is a guy that I think is going to throw big shots on the feet in Luna, move forward, look to grapple. I got questions about Kwang Le off of his back. Right? I think offensively with the grappling, we saw what he was able to do against Bolaños. I think on the feet, maybe he's the sharper striker. He's got some power. But what I've seen from Luna is he's a dog. He seems to have a solid gas tank. He's got finishing ability on the feet, on the ground. I'm going to take a shot on the prospect here that's stepping in on short notice. I think this guy's strong. He's explosive. It seems like he's got a pretty good skill set. Maybe he gets the UFC jitters. Maybe Kwang Le stops the takedowns, is able to keep this thing on the feet and land a shot. But I think that given that Kwang's defense is not particularly good, he's there to be hit, and his hips are there for Santiago to get in on. Give me the 21-year-old to go out there and get this one done. I know it's a little bit of a risk, it feels, because we know what Le has done in the UFC. We've seen sample sizes to where with Luna, there's some unknown here. But we just saw Axel go out there in France and beat a guy like Rhys McKee. Right, so some of the prospects, just because they're making their debut, that doesn't mean that we should fade him here. So I like what I've seen, the intangibles from Santiago. Will it look good here in the debut in the UFC? Yet to be seen. Weight cut thing does concern me a little bit, especially since it's at bantamweight. It's a guy that's been fighting at featherweight. How does that play out on a shorter notice? Does that wear the gas tank? I don't know. I got some questions, but I'm going to take a little bit of a shot here on Santiago. I like what I was seeing on the tape from this guy. He's explosive. He's dangerous. Give me Luna to get it done. Next, we got Alexander Hernandez versus Diego Ferreira. Give me Alexander Hernandez to get this one done. I'll say decision here. Listen, I faded for Hernandez against Chase Hooper. And in hindsight, that was a disaster because Alexander Hernandez actually has pretty good takedown defense. And inside the lightweight division, I believe that he is riding a nice little win streak. What is it, 4 or 5 fights in this division, right? We've seen him kind of move around. And, I like what we've seen. I think that's right. Whatever. He's at least on a three fight win streak, right? Split decision over Austin Hubbard. Beat Kurt Hollabaugh, coming off of the KO stoppage win over Chase Hooper. And here's what we've seen against Alexander Hernandez. This is a guy that I've shit on a little bit, right? I've said he's just kind of a guy, right? There's nothing really special about Hernandez. But we've seen that he has been making some nice improvements. Lateral movement, footwork, timing. The way he timed that right hand on the entry of Chase Hooper, it was pretty good. But here's the deal. Diego Ferreira is not no Chase Hooper. On the feet, Diego Ferreira, he's dangerous. He's got power. He's good. He's been around for a while, right? He was supposed to be fighting Bobby Green at 319. Green pulled out. So Ferreira's been itching for a fight. Last time was 7 months ago. Got, dominated on the ground by Grant Dawson. But he did get a finish over Mateusz Rambetsky. That's aged really well. KO's Michael Johnson with a right hand. He's got power, man. He absolutely has power. Right, and he got finished by, Gamrot, but again, that's Gamrot, Gregor Gillespie. Those are grapplers. I don't think that we really see Alexander Hernandez look to grapple, but I think sticking and moving, I think that the youth and the speed of Alexander Hernandez, I think that can be enough for him to win this fight. I feel like Diego's going to be banking on those big shots, and I just don't know that they're going to land on Alexander Hernandez in this fight. And even if they do, I trust Hernandez to circle off, right? We've seen that he's got a pretty good chin, pretty durable. And I like what we've seen in terms of building up this momentum here from Alexander Hernandez. A guy that I was kind of writing off, he's kind of found his way back into the mix. Made some good improvements, good fast right hand down the middle. I think that the speed, his youth, and just kind of the way that he's been improving here, give me Alexander Hernandez to go out there and beat an almost 41-year-old Diego Ferreira, who does have a good ground game, but when the fight hits the floor, that's where he starts playing with his guard. But in terms of the takedown entries, they're not the best. And on the feet, he tends to sacrifice, instead of throwing so much output, banking on the big power shots. I don't know how well that'll work for him in a fight like this against the faster guy in Alexander Hernandez. Give me Alexander to get it done. Next, we got Kelvin Gastelum versus Dustin Stoltzfus. I'm going to go KG here by decision. Listen, Kelvin Gastelum's really been in there with the who's who of the middleweight division. I mean, everyone that Kelvin fights is pretty much a guy that is a ranked fighter, someone that's been a champion. I mean, he's fought some of the best guys in the middleweight division. We've seen him at welterweight, which again, with that weight cut, it just doesn't seem like that's something very suitable for Gastelum, right? And I feel like we see him at his best at middleweight. Now, here's the deal. For 33 years of age, Kelvin Gastelum is really at a point to where he's basically washed. At least that's the way it feels. But he's got a lot of miles on him for a guy that's 33, almost 34. But the bottom line with Kelvin is he's got good wrestling. decent boxing skills. And the one thing about Kelvin that we all know, he has one of the best chins that we have ever seen. I mean, the shots that he was eating against Joe Pyfer, I thought Joe Pyfer was going to knock him out. I picked Pyfer to knock him out. I thought that if anyone could crack the chin, it would be Joe. But we saw that KG, man, that chin is still there. He can still eat a shot, still super durable, right? Got that win over Daniel Rodriguez, missed weight, and that was just kind of unfair. Just laid on D-Rod, weaponized the weight advantage, gets submitted by Sean Brady at welterweight, beats Chris Curtis, loses to Jared Cannonier. But here's the bottom line. KG at middleweight, he's durable, he's tough, he's going to move forward, solid boxing. Does concern me because Stoltzfus has the advantage here in terms of the reach. Right now, we've seen Gastelum kind of struggle on the outside, right? It's crazy because back in the day, he had that unbelievable fight with Israel Adesanya, right? We've seen him in there with the Robert Whitakers, right? I mean, just super high-level guys. And towards the end here, we've just kind of seen this fade off in terms of Kelvin Gastelum. But he's been in there against some dangerous fighters, man. It's not like he's in there against nobodies. So I think that that's something to account for here, right? Stoltzfus lost to Nursultan Ruziboev. Ruziboev is super good, right? At least I think. Gets a finish win over Marc-Andre Barriou, okay, right? You know, gets finished by Bruno Ferreira. Gets a finish over Soriano, loses to Abus Magomedov. So I feel like whenever Stoltzfus can get in a guy's face, just kind of make him feel his presence, we see him start to tee off on guys. To where in this fight, you are not going to scare Kelvin Gastelum. You're just not going to do it. I think Gastelum, we might even see him wrestle early on here, take away some of the explosiveness of Dustin, beat him up on the ground a little bit. I think the boxing, some of the output sometimes can fall behind for Kelvin. But I'm going to trust Gastelum to go out there, outscore him, mix in some of the grappling, land some decent shots on the feet. Give me KG to get this one done over Dustin Stoltzfus. I just think as powerful as Dustin can be, I don't think that that's troubling to a guy like Kelvin Gastelum at this point. Next, we got Jared Gordon versus Rafa Garcia. I'm going to go... Man, what we've seen from Garcia, we saw him get ground and pounded out by Grant Dawson. We saw him lose to Jakar Close. I'm going to pick Jared Gordon by, I'm going to say decision. I do see a scenario where he can find a TKO, but we've seen Rafa Garcia is pretty durable, right? I mean, he's got some solid wins, right? The win over Mahashate, beat Clay Guida, coming off of a win over the old Vince Pichel. But I just really like what we've seen from Jared Gordon, man. I mean, what he just did to Thiago Moises was very impressive. Thiago Moises is a solid fighter. He's been in there with some of the who's who in the division, right? Good ground game, good calf kicks. And we just saw some super slick boxing on the feet from Jared Gordon. And the fight before that against Nasrat Haqparast, close fight, right? Goes out there, finishes Mark Madsen, right? In the loss to Paddy Pimblett, I thought he won. Right, so he's been in there with some super good competition, and Jared Gordon has either been winning the fights or they've been split decisions or close fights that should have went his way. Give me Jared Gordon to get this one done, man. I think this fight plays out on the feet. I think that this is a fun scrap here. We see, good back and forth striking exchanges. Rafa Garcia's got some power, moves forward, willing to slug it out. I just feel like that plays to the advantage of Jared Gordon. We have seen that Rafa's tough, right? And he will grit it out, move forward, entertain a dogfight. And so will Jared Gordon. But I feel like the more precise guy, the guy with the good footwork, good timing, right, sees the shots coming, counters well, that's on the side of Jared Gordon. I think that he can kind of, stick and move, play the matador role, pressure a little bit, mix it up, change up the targets on Rafa. Yeah, I like Jared Gordon a lot in this fight. Give me Jared Gordon to get this one done. He's got really good boxing, good movement, good, very good fight IQ. I like Jared Gordon, man. Think he gets this one done by decision. Maybe he finds a finish, catches him with a good counter shot, but I'm going to say a decision win for Mr. Gordon. Next, co-main event, we got Rob Font versus David Martinez. I've kind of went back and forth in my head on this because I really like what I've seen from David Martinez. And, this guy's I think he's like an orthopedic surgeon. He's a doctor or something. I mean, this guy is clearly a very cerebral individual. Very smart. Right, and when you watch the tape, I mean, there's a lot to like here. Good movement, good footwork, hellacious kicks, fast, good timing, good Contender Series win against Xavier Franklin, got the nice finish over Oliveira in his debut. I like what we've seen from David Martinez. I thought that he would have dusted Kwang Le. That was supposed to be his matchup, and now he finds himself in a position against Rob Font because Raul Rosas had to pull out, and I was really looking forward to Font versus Raul. But the bottom line is, Font, it just feels like the UFC's trying to fade this guy, man, right? Font was supposed to fight Cruz. Cruz got injured, then retired, and then they threw Matsumoto in there. And it felt like they're trying to give these prospects Rob Font, hoping that one of these prospects can beat this guy. And the problem is Rob Font's been beating all of them. He didn't just beat Matsumoto by a close decision. That was a very close fight, and I picked Rob Font to win that one. He beat Kyler Phillips. He also beat Adrian Yanez, finished him, right? And then in this mix lost to Corey Sandhagen, but again, it was the grappling of Coria in that fight, Davison Figueiredo. It was the power, right, and some of the speed. And I feel like that's something that Martinez can bring to the table here. And the difference with David Martinez compared to these other prospects is, while he's 27 years of age, he fights like a very wise veteran fighter, man. He's got good kicks from the outside, good speed, changes up his angles, gives you a lot of feints, keeps you thinking, right? I don't think he's got the greatest boxing, which is a little bit of an issue here, right? Because Rob Font's got, about a 4-inch reach advantage here? And Rob Font's got one of the best jabs in the division for sure. One of the best jabs, I'd say, in the UFC. Good boxing. Good high guard. Very, very durable. Even if he gets rocked, he finds a way to shake off the cobwebs and stay in it. Good cardio. He's going to move forward, push the pace. I think if Rob Font pressures and fights behind the jab, he might be able to pull this one off here. So that's what I've wrestled with. But then I watched David Martinez's fights, and I just, he's got some experience in the UFC here. I mean, that knockout win over Oliveira was impressive. Even though that's not a Rob Font, it's still impressive. Good win on the Contender Series. I like the movement, man. I like the speed. I like the leg kicks from range. I worry about the boxing defense. Martinez does have power in his hands as well, but he's not particularly a very good boxer. Rob Font has the advantage there. It's just the one-shot power that Martinez has. I do think that he can sting Rob Font and hurt him in this fight. I don't think we see a lot of grappling here. I think that this is Martinez sticking and moving from the outside. Seems like he's got a good gas tank. He's going to need it because Font's going to look to pressure forward, get the jab in his face, look to bust up the nose, swell the lips, affect the breathing. I'm going to go David Martinez to get this one done here. I think he gets a decision win here. I'm realizing, man, I don't know that there's going to be a lot of finishes on here, at least the way I'm seeing it. But David Martinez is good, man. He's fast, slick, good speed. And like I said, the way he fights like a veteran. He really, really does. A guy that's been, savvy, that's been around for a while. So I like that in a fight against Rob Font. Big moment here, co-main event, big opportunity. Rob Font's been in there with the who's who. He's 38 years of age, but he's had the answers for these prospects. But I look at David Martinez as maybe not as, Jean Matsumoto's got some good grappling. Martinez, decent. But it's on the feet to where he's going to stick and move and play the outside game, to where Font's going to try to get to the inside. I think David Martinez sticks and moves, keeps him at range, lands those kicks from the outside, outscores him, and if Font gets overzealous trying to recklessly close him down, that'll open up those big power shots that we see Martinez land. Give me David Martinez to land the more significant shots. The kicks will add up from the outside, help slow down the movement of Rob Font. Give me Martinez to outscore him and pull this one off. Last but not least, we got the co-main event. And if you're enjoying this video, man, if you could subscribe, comment below, and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. Listen, I'm really excited for this main event. And I've went back and forth in my head because I've said time and time again that I believe out of all of the fighting nerds, I believe that it was like Rufy and Prates kind of have the X factor when it comes to the striking, the movement, some of those things. Bahalio, it was kind of the IQ, the well-roundedness, the game plan. And then with Jean Silva, it's just a psycho. It's a psychotic individual, right? A guy that's just got some screws loose, right? Dangerous power, significant speed when it comes to that right hand. I mean, that right hand that he throws down the middle is an absolute cannon. And look out, because if it lands, it's knocking anyone out in this weight class. And I think that it could transfer to the lightweight division as well. This guy's got devastating power, really good timing, waves that lead hand around, kind of distracting you, trying to find the opening, and then boom, that right hand comes out of nowhere. Right? And then you look at Diego Lopes, and we've seen Silva's grappling tested against Bryce Mitchell, and it held up pretty well, dominated him, even submitted Bryce Mitchell. He was like, come grab my leg, what are you going to do? Submitted him. But we've seen Diego Lopes in there with the better opposition, without question. And Diego Lopes, a little bit taller, couple-inch reach advantage, good power, excellent jiu-jitsu skills, big guy for the weight class. right? I just have so many different variables into this fight because this is the first 5-rounder for Jean Silva here in the UFC. Big main event. Does he feel that moment? Does he act different? I don't think so. I think a guy that's just like got the screws loose like him, barking around, like I don't think he cares. I don't think he cares. But what plays into my mind a little bit is we've seen all the fighting nerds have their fall so far. Protest lost to Gary, right? He bounced back nicely against Neal. We saw Rufy just get exposed by BSD. We saw Bahalio lose to Imavov. And it just feels like, is it Jean Silva's time? Is it his time? I feel like Jean Silva's different than those guys, man. I feel like he's the most complete out of all of them. He's got the power. He's got speed. He's got high IQ on the feet. But the bottom line is this guy can scrap, man. He can absolutely scrap. And what we've seen in the UFC, I mean, the KO over Weston Wilson, knocks out Charles Jourdain, beats up on Drew Dober. It was a complete one-sided domination. Starches Melsik Bagdasaryan, who's a pretty savvy kickboxer, coming off of a very impressive submission over Bryce Mitchell. Right, and then you got Diego Lopes, the savage, brutally finishing Pat Sabatini running through him. Runs through Sadiq Youssef at UFC 300. Beats Dan Ige, but we saw Ige put it on him late. But again, Diego Lopes, it was like he had a fight, he didn't have a fight. He didn't have a fight, he had a fight. And then the next thing you know, he's fighting at a different weight, whatever they weighed in at. And Ige took the fight on like an hour notice, 2 hours notice. Right, so that I give Lopes a little bit of a pass there. You think you're fighting, then you're not. You're cutting weight, then you're not. It was a disaster, roller coaster. But we saw how good he is in that fight. Goes out there, should have knocked out Brian Ortega. Knocked him out with a right hand, woke him up with the left hook, and that brought Brian Ortega back into the fight. Almost knocked out Brian Ortega inside a minute, dude. Then he goes out there against Alexander Volkanovski. I thought I picked him to win this fight, and Volkanovski stunted on him. And one of the reasons that happened is, yes, Alexander Volkanovski is an all-time great, and he looked fantastic, but Diego Lopes was one of the cases that I always get worried about with a young guy who's riding a lot of hype, a lot of momentum, looks great, gets into their first title opportunity, and they had not been in a 5-round fight prior. What happens? We see you change a little bit. We see you get maybe worried about the gas tank to where you don't go all gas like we always see Lopes do in the beginning of a fight. Maybe that was also part of the skill set of Volkanovski. Volkanovski's got good footwork. He's elusive. He's fast, right? And Volkanovski was doing a lot of things in that fight that I think Jean Silva is going to be able to do, because here's the bottom line. Lopes, he likes to counter, right? He doesn't have a particularly good jab. He's got a big leg kick that I think he's going to want to weaponize, so Silva's going to have to be ready for that, because I could see him trying to, attack the base of Silva. Silva doesn't really deal with leg kicks that well, doesn't check him, doesn't get his leg out of the way that much. I think Lopes is going to look to do that. Try to push this fight into the clinch, wear on Silva a little bit, maybe try to grapple because he has excellent jiu-jitsu skills, but he's not a particularly great wrestler, right? And we've seen Lopes getting it done with his hands. Tries to counter, slip his head off the center line, right hand, left hook. That's kind of his go-to. Good uppercuts. But as the fight plays out for the guy that has the 5-round experience under his belt already here in Lopes and fighting for a title, he still slows down to me. And I feel like there's a little bit of doubt in his mind when it comes to his gas tank. Maybe that's just me, but I feel that way about Lopes. And I feel like while Silva's not been in a 5-round fight yet, I feel like he might have the better gas tank still here. I'm going to pick Jean Silva to win this fight by knockout, man. I think that he is going to find a KO in this fight against Diego Lopes. Here's the deal, man. Diego Lopes is absolutely capable of winning this fight. I see a path to victory for him here. I see him being patient, feinting, popping a jab to get Silva to open up first, to where Diego can counter him and land those big shots, because those hands are low of Silva. We do see him get clipped with some shots at some times. He doesn't have a ton of respect for his opponent's power. I think he will respect the power of Diego coming into this fight. And here's the deal. Diego's defense is not particularly good, right? We see what like his teammate Alexa Grasso. They fight behind that high guard. They don't have good footwork. They don't move very well side to side. They don't cut the cage off. And if you're just going to recklessly kind of barge into range against Jean Silva, you are going to get knocked out. Jean Silva has a laser beam right hand, man. It is fast. That sweeping left hook that basically sets up that right hand. It's all to get to the right hand, man. And he's a strong guy in this weight class. He's got that lower center of gravity. He's very stout, very strong. Strong hips to stop the takedowns. Good submissions. To punk Bryce Mitchell like that is impressive. Bryce Mitchell's got good ground skills, man. He does. So I feel like Jean Silva can keep the fight on the feet here. Now, if this goes into the later rounds, it's where things are going to get interesting because we've seen Diego in a 5-round fight. We've seen him hurt Volkanovski, rock him, and drop him. But if you're asking me, how does Jean Silva do in a fight with Volkanovski, I think he knocks Volk out. Right? I think that Volkanovski sticks and moves and has early success, but it's a matter of time until Silva lands, man. I mean, you can't get hit by this guy. Every single fight that Silva is in, when he hits people, he hurts them. Puts them on wobbly legs. You see their body language change. Diego Lopes has bad defense. He does. He gets hit a lot. And I know Silva gets hit from time to time, but we see Lopes get hit hard. And when he does, he wants to get it back. He bites down, gets into the pocket, gets angry, tries to slug it out. I think that might be his demise in this fight, man. Jean Silva likes to taunt, likes to, he plays all this, high five, man, laughing, throwing his hands around. I feel like that's something that might be able to draw out some emotion from Diego Lopes where we see Silva land a shot off that, man. I don't know. I feel like he's going to be messing with Diego Lopes' mind in there. If you go back and watch Diego fight, man, watch the Volkanovski fight. When he can't get a hold of you, he gets irritated. And then when you hit him, he's like, come on. You don't want to do that against Jean Silva. You don't want to do that. A lot of people I'm seeing online, they just don't like Jean Silva, man. Right? A lot of people don't like the fighting nerds, right? And I like watching these guys fight, man. I think that they're fun to watch. I'm not the biggest Jean Silva fan. I'm more of a fan of Diego Lopes. I would like to see Diego get this one done. But off of what I'm seeing on the tape, you can't get hit by Silva. He's a high-level fighter, right? We're seeing that. His IQ is there. The way he's setting these shots up, he's not just hoping and firing. He's got a lot of purpose behind what he's doing. We saw him against Bryce Mitchell. That was the grappling test. He passed with flying colors. He's got power on the feet. He's creative. I just see that right hand landing on Diego Lopes, wobbling him, biting down, looking to get one back, getting hit with another one and knocked out. Jean Silva, I think, is the real deal. I think that out of all the fighting nerds, I think that he's the one that is going to be a champion. With the right matchups, I think Prates could find his way to a belt with the right stylistic matchups, whereas with Jean Silva, I think he's a problem for everybody. I think his grappling seems like it's pretty good from what we saw against Bryce Mitchell, right? Again, small sample size, but on the feet, I think he could strike with anybody in this weight class. Why he doesn't have a ton of output, the power is countering. He leans back in that stance, right, to kind of get away and be right there to counter. I think he lands some big shots and puts Diego Lopes away. I think Diego Lopes could land on Jean Silva, catch him, hurt him, club and sub, something like that for sure. I like the leg kicks that Lopes brings to the table, but I feel like it's the mind games that Silva's going to play, the precision, the accuracy, the power, and I feel like it's that I got to get one back on you attitude that Diego's going to have at some point that's going to get him in some trouble here because is he going to come out aggressive and try to get back to his roots? Because if he does that, I feel like he's going to move right into range and get clipped. But then eventually Silva's going to move forward, start to find his range, and then I feel like he's going to start to get the timing, and then it's going to be a problem. I feel like Jean Silva's going to get this one done, man. I know the fighting nerds have all been taking their L's, but I feel like this is the best one out of them all around. That win over Kevin Vallejos on the Contender Series has aged very well. Now, Diego Lopes is a different dude, man. He's a different kind of beast. But I think that the skills of Jean Silva, they're legit. I think they're legit. Diego Lopes is very, very good. Had his opportunity against Volkanovski at some moments, but Volkanovski just stuck and moved from the outside, was landing good shots in the pocket. And I'm like, if that's Jean Silva, Volk's got good movement, and he's the better fluent striker than any of these guys, in this weight class, basically, right? But if you got power, we've seen that Volk can be in some trouble, right? Diego Lopes put him in some trouble here and there, but Volk was landing good shots in the pocket. And if that's Jean Silva, I think he's putting Diego Lopes down. I think Jean Silva, at the end of the day, gets a knockout in this fight, gets the biggest win of his career. I would not be shocked if he KOs Diego Lopes. They don't slide him in there for the next title shot against Volkanovski. I know they're saying it's Lerone Murphy, right? Movsar Evloev, pulled out of the Pico fight. I don't know what's going on there. But like I said before, if Jean Silva gets a KO in this fight, I just see the UFC trying to push him right to the title after a win here over a guy like Diego Lopes. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Let me know what you think down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. See you next time.